Without any representation or voice in our state legislature to combat that at the federal level, these people are basically hopeless. And if we had the ability to express our grievances and redress our government, so is our right, we would have a better chance to do that in the state of Idaho, where that government, that legislature has more representation for people like us.
15 seconds.
Vehicle's flight pressures.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hello and welcome, independent researchers, skeptics, and all of humankind, to Shadow Citizen. Shadow Citizen will explore the shadows of an alternate reality. Your hosts, Rachel L. McIntosh.
All right, everybody, welcome to Shadow Citizen. We made it through another week, and today I'm with a very special guest. This is an American citizen. He's from Oregon, and recently, I really don't know much about this, so I'm really excited to have Keaton DMs on with me today. He's from, right behind him, you can see Move Oregon's border, and they, amazingly, was it 5 counties, voted to move Oregon's border so that they'd be more aligned with the philosophy of the state next to them. So, Keaton, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you're doing.
Thanks, Rachel, for having me. Yeah, my name's Keaton. I'm an Oregonian through and through. I was born in Oregon City, Oregon. Technically the same hospital as my dad, so pretty much rooted in this area. I'm a third generation tree farmer, and basically got disgruntled with the way my state was working out, and decided to do something about it. And this movement for our border change is basically taking all these rural counties, these disaffected communities, and putting them into a state jurisdiction that is more responsive to rural citizens and rural community needs. We have a huge disparity between rural and urban. The state legislature here in Oregon is dominated by Democrats. We have a super majority. There's no need to have any bipartisanship on any bill. The Democrats can just roll through whatever they want. And to be honest, I don't blame them for that. They're in the utilitarian philosophy. They are doing the most good for the most amount of people, and I can respect that. Unfortunately, it ignores the rest of us. It just cuts us out. They don't need to talk to us. So this movement, this whole border change, it's not a unheard of thing. It really is spelled out in our Constitution. Our borders have changed, throughout history. We can look to West Virginia, we can look to Vermont. There's all these examples. Interstate compacts happened every year. The people of Idaho are welcoming. They are, seen as a friendly neighbor and people who want to take us in. And I don't see any problem with, Oregon letting go of 3/4 of the land, but only 20% of its population.
Okay. All right. Now, when I first saw this, I had heard back, I believe it was in 2008, about something called State of Jefferson. And when I found out about this on Twitter the other night, I noticed that State of Jefferson was kind of involved with the groups that were doing this. So is this, you said it was different counties. It's a bunch of different people who had similar ideas, but this isn't just about current events. It's gone back, well, it is current, 2008. That's still pretty current. But tell me more about how these groups got together and finally just said, okay, let's just do this.
Right. So this sentiment of moving the border or creating a new state even is this fairly persistent throughout our history out here. The state of Jefferson goes back decades. It's a movement to create a new state from the southern part of Oregon and the northern part of California. That movement's been going on for years. I've known about that since I was a kid, spending my summers in Southern Oregon. That was definitely
a thing.
a thing. There's also the Cascadia movement. It's more of a far left. It's based out of Portland, and that's a little more of an extreme movement to take all of Oregon, all of Washington, and British Columbia to create their own country. And that was that movement. There's also an Eastern Washington movement called the State of Liberty. They're trying to start their own version of kind of what the state of Jefferson is. All of those movements are very complex in their formation. They're really creating new state governments. It's a lot more of an uphill battle for those goals to come about. Our proposal, our kind of process that we're going through is a lot more tempered. We've kind of maybe learned from the mistakes of these other movements and really approached this in a constitutional democratic process of getting all these counties in our proposal, 18 full counties, and then a few more that are going to be partial, and having them vote in these non-binding measures at the county level to force their county commissioners to take up the idea. And as we build this momentum, like we said, we had 2 counties start the process in last fall's election, voted to do this, Jefferson and Union. And then we just had 5 more join last week. So we're at a total of 7.
Yes.
This fall, we have maybe 5 or 7 more going to vote on another special election this fall to join. And then even more next spring in a special election.
Okay, so all these people, they in their own county, they brought a special election question up. I'm trying to tell people what they do in their own state if they're interested. So you have to get a special election question created, and
we start with a petition process.
Right. So
a certain number of signatures.
Right. So then, when that passes, now you said are you waiting to get more people? How's this going to work?
So for the counties that haven't voted yet,
okay,
we're either still collecting signatures or we have the signatures and we're just about getting ready to submit to get them verified and then to get the ballot kind of language and particulars put to the vote. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts, and in each county you have to deal with the county clerk and the court and all that stuff through there. And then the issue of starting the petition, that's also something you have to do through the courts, and then gathering those signatures. Some of these counties are hundreds of miles apart from each other. The communities are vastly dispersed over a very large area of land. We don't have the luxury of just going door to door or down the hall to the various apartments and knocking and just getting all those signatures. It's kind of a lot of foot work to get all this going. So
I have to say I admire that, because here in Rhode Island, literally my whole entire state,
mm-hmm.
You can drive through our state within an hour in any direction. So what you're doing is phenomenal to me. Just that part of the logistics of it's so huge. So continue. So you get all this paperwork done.
You get all this paperwork done.
You get to the question on the ballot.
Yeah.
Now, when that happens, what instantly is going to happen if everybody votes yes on this thing?
At the county level, when they vote to pass the measure, we will have mandated meetings with the county commissioners to talk about the process. So like the next few weeks, I'll be meeting with some of these counties that just passed the measure and discussing with those county commissioners how this is going to work out. There's definitely more than one way to get this done. We can, as we get more and more counties lined up, we can push it through to the governor's office or push through the legislature and committee to get a bill signed or some sort of vote to the statewide, like let these counties go. What are we going to do here? We can ask the governor on behalf of all these county commissioners to start a commission to look into this. Transversely, we have to do this on Idaho's side. Idaho has to accept us. And so we have a lot of support in the Idaho legislature where representatives and state senators there are going to be looking into starting a commission soon. Hopefully we'll get that ball rolling, and then that'll kind of force the hand of Oregon's administration to get going on our side as well.
Okay, so you said before we even started this interview, you said this is not a secessionist movement. Mm-hmm. What is this movement?
This is a redrawing of state borders. Okay. Last time this happened in Oregon, Oregon changed its border in 1958. It was a couple dozen houses in a neighborhood between Oregon and Washington. They moved the border so that people who lived on one side of the street were in Washington, and now they were in Oregon. It's not an uncommon thing. We're not starting a new state. We're not anything like the HR 51 to make DC statehood or Puerto Rico statehood or anything like that. We're not trying to start a brand new state government. We're not trying to add another star to the flag, anything like that. This is just like, hey, these people, they live closer to the capital of Idaho than they do to the capital of Oregon. From Ontario, Oregon, that's like the eastern border. It's 50 minutes to get to Boise, the capital of Idaho. It's 8.5 hours to get to the capital of Oregon.
That's quite the trek.
Yeah, 8.5 hours. That's a day. That's a day's. You're not going to be going there and back. And,
yeah.
It's also, we have the Cascade mountain range. So there's a huge mountain range that divides, the Willamette Valley, basically the northwest quadrant of our state, where 80% of the state's population lives. And so between Portland, Salem, and Eugene, those are the three major urban centers in our state. Mm-hmm. That's 80% of the state population. That's a 4-to-1 ratio of voting power. So it seems just disingenuous to say that Oregon's Governor Kate Brown represents, the people out east and the people in Southern Oregon. They are so just, culturally different, economically different. They want to talk about kitchen table issues. A lot of the problems that are happening in Portland, that doesn't affect us. And the policies that come out at the state level that are rolled out onto the whole state have no benefit for, rural citizens. But then the rural citizens are also at the subjugation of the urban politicians, putting forward legislation. Like right now we have legislation to outlaw diesel and make diesel fuel illegal in the state. They want to double the branding fee on every head of cattle. So some of these ranches have thousands of cows. And if you're going to double the branding fee for each one of those, you're going to just price them out of business. We've had, the last 2 years of legislation, walkouts. Our Republican representatives in the super minority walked out of the state legislature, fled the state because we wanted to deny quorum and deny votes from taking place. The vote was to create this legislation we call cap and trade. They wanted to basically monetize every single aspect of carbon released into the state. And there was no measurable means to like quantify that. And it was just going to devastate these rural communities. And so the Republicans walked out, they fled the state. The state troopers were going to go after them to basically bring them to justice. And the governor had the right to do that. You know, ironically, Kate Brown led the first walkout in 2000 over redistricting. So it comes full circle. But, you know, that's an unsustainable way to legislate in the state. So, you know, having these people vote to move out, to basically join a different jurisdiction where the policies are readily geared towards rural citizens, it just seems like a win-win situation.
Yeah, it seems like an amicable divorce.
It's a very good way to put it. We do call this a peaceful divorce. You know, we're not lobbing Molotov cocktails at courthouses. We're not burning down cities. You know, we're in our community, and we want our voices heard. And we're a really small fish in a big pond of Oregon. In Idaho's legislature, we can be, you know, a medium fish in a medium pond. It seems like a more you know, ideal place for us to be.
Yeah. Now, I was looking at the map of your greater Oregon. You have some access to the Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
That's critical from what I learned back in the day about borders and trading. And so tell me about that, and how that came to be.
So that's one of the big pulls for Idaho, is that, you know, there would be Idaho beachfront property. There's a major city, or I say major city, but a port in the southern coast of Oregon, Coos Bay, and it's basically undeveloped, underutilized as far as getting goods to the international market. A lot of the resources and you know, industry that comes out of Southern Oregon has to be trucked up the interstate highway system into downtown Portland, clogging up traffic, making all this pollution that, you know, Portlanders are really upset about, right? Because we have to get all this stuff to the Port of Portland, and Port of Portland, you know, kind of, you know, to their best interest, would lobby to make sure that they are the only business in town that all the goods and services floats to. It makes sense. I get it. Coos Bay, you know, it's a 30-minute commute from the deep water port in Coos Bay to the Pacific Ocean. In Portland, it's an 8.5 hour boat ride out of the river stream through the Columbia to get to the ocean. But then we had to drive everything up the interstate to get it there. So utilizing the Coos Bay deepwater port is absolutely just, you know, people's mouths are watering just to be able to, you know, use things more efficiently in our state. So that's one of the biggest pulls for Idaho is so that we can use that. Right. There was also a liquid natural gas pipeline that was shut down.
Okay.
Before the current presidential administration took power, and you know, a lot of people were really upset that was also kirbotched.
Okay, where's that gas coming from or to? Can't.
Yeah, it was called the Jordan Cove project.
Okay.
It came from Coos Bay, and it went all the way down. Basically, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
From here all the way across the bottom half of Southern Oregon. A lot of people were upset when that was shut down, because it really devastated a lot of people.
All right, so you would have access to the ocean for trading, and you would have natural gas that would get kicked back up or on, you know, if you guys became.
Hopefully. I mean, there are federal permits as well, right. But as far as, you know, the state's contention, Idaho's legislature would be more in favor of you know, a resource like that, you know, flowing through. And so the companies that would support that liquid natural gas pipeline would only have to contend with one adversarial government administration instead of two.
Who is opposed to this idea?
To our border change?
To your whole move, yes.
With any political movement, you have people on all sides kind of, detest you. There's a lot of Republicans in and along the valley who are like, hey, you're leaving us behind. They want to join, like they call us kind of cowards. And I get that. I live in the valley myself. I'm from the valley. I want to change Oregon. This is a way to leverage that. As far as the kind of the left side of the aisle that's really opposed to this, or kind of like our philosophy or kind of our way of life out here in rural Oregon, they mostly say, let them go. They say, we don't want them anywhere. That's MAGA land. That's Trump country. Make Idaho worser is what we hear a lot. That seems to be the people who don't like us are more inclined to say, let us go, which I'll take that. It's more of the minority voice on the other side that's like, no, they're part of our DNA. We own them. It's all one Oregon. They can't really come up. I don't see a real good argument to keep us around. Just to
do they lose federal? Does the state lose federal funding if that much of the state is getting pushed into another state?
Well, yes, there's going to be some federal funding that is lost, but that federal funding would have gone to that area anyway. Okay. So it's not so much a detraction on the state budget. The state wouldn't have to worry about subsidizing these counties anymore. Basically with the policies that they put forward that have no benefit to these counties in the first place.
Wow. To me, this is just groundbreaking. This whole idea. Like I said, I'm from Rhode Island. I'm in New England. I don't know where people who think philosophically different would actually be able to stretch out and touch, in this case, if it's a Democrat, Republican type of thing, because New England is pretty solid in there. However, there is a chunk of people, that supported Trump, and it's, the Republican. Obviously, there's always this two-party thing going on. Right. I don't know if we're at the point in Rhode Island where we would actually try to do any of this, but this to me is absolutely fantastic that the people themselves could just say, hey, look, it's not working out. And that's what it's really all about, right? It's all about the people. I think this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is in its essence an extremely democratic process. I mean, we aren't like, wanting to be held hostage. We would just like, hey, you go do your thing, we'll go do ours. Like it didn't work out. Sorry. There's not it's not really much for the commonality or common ground to be found between Eastern and Southern Oregonians and basically the state of Portland. I grew up knowing and just being told, yeah, it's the state of Portland. Wherever Portland goes, Oregon goes, and it's just not. It's not fair because this whole rural urban dichotomy is replete throughout the entire country. There's really no blue states. There's blue cities that dominate the political agenda in the state. And so with Idaho being kind of, a lower population state and kind of having some sort of balance between the urban and rural, there's definitely Democrats and liberal type people who live in rural Oregon who are also disaffected. Their voices aren't heard in Salem. Our binding, commonality is that we are rural, and then we can bind that together, and we can talk about the issues that are affecting our community. But what's going on in Portland, all the mass homelessness, the drug use, the constant, riots, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go into Portland. It's just not a safe place anymore. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be, caught with the bill of everything that's going on, and all the money that's being spent to basically clean up Portland is money that the rural communities could have used to recover after the major fires that we had last year, or
yeah, or the whole past year, I'm sure blew out a lot of people's business.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, I had one question personally for you. You said you're a tree farmer.
Yes.
Tell me about that, because I don't really know anything about that.
So my understanding and what my family history is that my grandfather was the first person to plant a Christmas tree west of the Mississippi. Yeah, we are
Cool.
timber farmers. My grandfather, helped a lot of people get their farms started. The joke and the story is that my dad and his friends would purposely start fights in grade school so that they can get suspended and go earn a nickel for the day working on the farm for Grandpa Vic. And my father kind of started his own farm after he went to college, and was disillusioned by the whole kind of working life, and so he was a farmer, and I grew up going to the farm with him as well. Trees have just been like a part of our blood. We're deeply rooted in the culture, right? Unfortunately, our family farms aren't going to be a part of this movement. My involvement is basically with this is to kind of ensure that legacy and that future. We've wanted to manage our forests better. We've wanted to use the resources that the earth provides, and be stewards of the land. And unfortunately, the policies have been brought down by people who live in high rises and a concrete jungle, dictating to us how the people who live among the woods and among the trees how to take care of the forest. And it's like, I'm sorry, you just don't know how this works out here. Like, we need to clear out some things. We need to get rid of the old growth and sequester the carbon properly, so that we don't have these devastating fires that we had last year.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, my grandfather started the Christmas Tree Growers Association. He was kind of the classic. He would go to the diner in the morning and talk to the fellas about who's got what doing where. If anybody needed a job, he'd give them work to do for the day. And he died poor. He spent his last money building the new church in the town there in Malala, and taught us how to work hard and make our own way. It's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah. That's an awesome story. Now, here's my next question for you. What's the typical size of a tree farm?
It depends on which kind of farm you run. A large timber, like if you want like real 20-30 years of growth for lumber or something like that, those can be hundreds of acres. For us, with the Christmas trees, we kind of take the approach with like smaller, maybe 40 to 60, 80 acres of land, and maybe have 20 of those farms that grow trees anywhere from 4 to 10, 12 feet in height when we go to harvest them. We also, kind of like rescue trees that have been like neglected or forgotten. And we clear out the lanes, clean up the land a little bit so that the trees can grow better and have a healthier life when we go to harvest them, and then replant. It's constantly a series of planting, and then 10 years later, harvesting, tilling the land, replanting, and rinsing, repeat. I mean, there's trees that I've, harvested in the last few years that, I helped plant when I was, knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah,
So
that is awesome. All right, now, what type of technology are you using when you're farming? Do you have? I mean, like I said, I don't know anything about this. This is fascinating. Continue.
Oh yeah, we have chainsaws. We have balers where we cut the trees. We go through and make the roads. We used to use helicopters to bring piles of trees back to the main road. We have elevators and semi trucks, ice machines to spray ice on the trees, and we ship them out to Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, all that stuff. So
And you're shipping them out via trucks, or would you be going out to that spot on the Pacific?
Well, for us, like our trees are in Clackamas County, so we would go through the Port of Portland, and other semi trucks they stay on the truck and they drive down and they get dropped off in Arizona, or we've sent trees to Guam and Hong Kong and Singapore and all that stuff. So however it gets there, we find a way. So.
Yes, that is so. Thank you for sharing that. Like I said, I had no concept.
It's a lot of manual labor. It's a lot of bucking trees up onto the big truck, and it's sloppy, it's wet, it's grueling work. It's not for the faint of heart. It's gonna. It really hits the fan when about a month before Thanksgiving we have to start clearing roads and tree tagging as far as who this field is going to be bought by and how many trees we need to take off. And my favorite part is once February rolls around, we have to clean up the field and do these big burns for all the scrap that's left on there. And the last few months we've been tilling the land so that we can start the replanting process.
Right on. All right. So right now we're in May. Mm-hmm. And so where are you in the timeline here? You've already replanted.
Next part, we're going to be shearing, as far as the new buds on some of the trees, like a Douglas tree, which is a certain type of tree. It kind of grows up and grows out. We're used to that classic conical shape. Douglas, you have to kind of shear them and cut them into as the new growth. And then a lot of tie topping, so we make sure that the top of the tree is growing straight up. So we have these little bamboo rods that we attach to it and guide it all the way up, and making sure we fertilize and mow the lawn so that the trees have little competition. And right now it's a lot of replanting right at this time of year. So the weather's decent for it. And as the summer goes on, it'll just be kind of making sure that they're either watered, not too hot, or just kind of monitoring.
It brings me to the next question. How is the water situation for Greater Idaho?
So that's kind of one of the issues people want to join Idaho, is there's a lot of water rights issues. Actually, there's an article I read this morning, started to read. People are really ticked off about the Klamath water project in Southern Oregon. There's some irrigators who have no access to the water. That basically the feds have turned off the tap, and the irrigation down there has just been stopped. And so these communities are mostly farmers. They're mostly people who produce, and the government's doing all that it can to stop that, unfortunately. So without any representation or voice in our state legislature to combat that at the federal level, these people are basically hopeless. And if we had the ability to express our grievances and redress our government, so is our right, we would have a better chance to do that in the state of Idaho, where that government, that legislature has more representation for people like us.
Right on. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? Can people donate to you? I mean, how are you guys financing this? Just people?
We're definitely on a shoestring budget. We would love donations. GreaterIdaho.org, the website right above my head. There's a donate button there. We do report everything to campaign financing regulations, and we've spent most of our money, what little we had, on mailings. We don't get the luxury of really maximizing the digital sphere as far as Facebook groups or social media or anything like that, mostly because people have disconnected from those. Our pages get shut down, and for the most part, these communities don't have broadband internet. They're people that don't really utilize the internet. And so our communication line has basically been through the snail mail version, which is very expensive, sending one letter to every single door, to get our word out. So donations are very, very helpful. Covering the gas bill or the overnight stays that we inevitably have to do to get to these people. I mean, I'm planning a one-nighter in Lake County for a commissioners meeting to discuss what's going on, but that's like a 5.5-hour drive. That's gas prices are going up, and these places
Hence the Move Oregon's Border Project.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. Oh, thank you so much for being with us, Keaton. I really, really appreciate it. I know we did this like on a moment's notice, and I so appreciate this. And I'm going to share this as far and wide as I can. And good luck to your movement. We'll be rooting for you, at least watching you to see how this turns out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And everybody stay tuned for another Shadow Citizen next week. Got a great guest. All right. Thank you so much, Keaton.
Shadow Citizen with Rachel L. McIntosh.